Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today on the Masechtas Ksuvas Daf Chaf Hey, we are going to begin on Chaf Hey Amud Aleph, 8 lines from the top. So we were discussing if a person is eating truma, is that proof that they're a kohen and therefore mal yochsen? And we ended up seeing when it came to the story of Nehemiah that he allowed people to continue to eat truma. And the question is, if that's the case, then maybe people will start thinking that they're kohanim. We said that's not an issue because he didn't allow them to eat kodshim, so therefore it is reach haskaihu. Their chazaka is bad. Alternatively, the only time we'll elevate a person is only if they're eating truma deraisa, not by truma derabanan. The Gemara says, if a truma deraisa lo achol, is it true that he didn't allow them to eat truma deraisa? Vaksiv asher lo yoichu mikodesh chadashim. It only says they can't eat from Kodesh Kadashim, which is the diak, Mikodesh Kadashim hu d'loyachol. How about Truma d'Raisa achol? L'chayr they were able to eat any Truma, even Truma d'Raisa. Hachakara. Lo b'midi d'ikri Kodesh. It means not just Kodesh, like Hekdesh, but anything which is called Kodesh d'Raisa. D'chsiv achol zol yachol Kodesh, which is anything they can't eat Kodesh. V'loimidi d'ikri Kadashim. D'chsiv v'vaskoin kisel ish zar. He betrumas kadashim lo yisaychel. V'yamar b'mor min hakadashim lo yisaychel. So we see that included in this is the notion of not being able to eat truma deraisa, which is Rashi says lo b'midi the ikri kodesh behind the truma. So therefore, that's what he was referring to. It says kodesh kadashim. It doesn't mean hektish. It means things that have the status of something midiraisa being called this, which includes truma. They were not allowed to eat truma deraisa, only allowed to eat truma derabana. Tashma chazaka l'kahuna. What is a chazaka that this person is a kohen? So one is nesias kapayim, which we actually had a question yesterday. Is nesias kapayim enough of a raya that this individual is a kohen? So it says nesias kapayim bebavel yachilas chala b'surya. So if they ate chala, that would also be proof. The chiluk matanais, the division of gifts, which is matnas kahuna, bikrochim. Katanim is nesias kapayim by lav yochsen. So we see that nesias kapayim is enough l'chayra to be able to establish this person as a kohen for yochsen. Lo with truma. The fact that we know that he does nesias kapayim, that will allow him at least to eat truma, but not necessarily yochsen. I behodom dechilas chal katani. Machilas chala in Surya is yochsen. So af nesias kapayim yochsen. So lo achilas chala gufa with truma. Also, when it comes, if we know that they're eating challah, we'll also allow them to eat truma, because ksavar challah bisman is derabanan, utruma deraisa, maskina mechal derabanan, utruma deraisa. So the chiddush is that once we see them eating challah, which is din derabanan, which is challah derabanan bisman is, we'll even allow them to eat truma, which is deraisa. Says Rashi. Again, chazaka with kahuna, Rashi says lahedel of shukayin. So if you look at Rashi, it's abel achilas challah truma eno chazaka the chutzal aretz lav deraisa truma delay v'li kapti kuli have achilas challah b'surya. He armed Sova. Shekivsha David conquered that area. V'chibra Eretz Yisrael, it was part of Eretz Yisrael. V'ksavar haitana kibush yachid shmi kibush v'chalasa trumasa deraisa. We thought that we think that din is a din deraisa. So where it says like this, and he's actually saying the opposite. Fine. Toshma chazak kahuna nesias kapayim v'chil guranais, which is Rashi says chil guranais is truma beretz Yisrael u'v'Surya v'chol makom sheshluchu rosh chodesh. Any time where there was they sent for Rosh Chodesh, Megin, Nesias Kapayim, Raya. Of a Lochil Granois, that would not be a Raya, only Nesias Kapayim. Ubabavel Kasuria. Shemigol Omer Af, Al Cassandra Shematzrayim, also in Egypt. Brishaina, Mimne Shabes Din Kavuin Sham, they had a basin that was set over there. Katani Mias, Nesias Kapayim, Isle of Yochsen. So again, we're asking the same question that it says Nesias Kapayim works to establish this person as a kohen. So chayr against a raya. So if we look at Rashi again, when it says Eretz Yisrael, because the hashta the truma de bisman is the deraisa. Kivad the avan misa iko maskina min yochsen. So chayra nesias kapayim is a raya for yochsen. Lo l'chala. the fact that you see someone eating truma is enough. If you see someone doing the Sis Kapayim, it's enough for them to be able to eat chal. Like we saw before, you see someone doing the Sis Kapayim will allow them to eat truma. Here you can eat challah. Which is truma. My chil guranos yochsan out in Sis Kapayim yochsan. Lo chil guranos guful challah. The fact that you see someone eating truma is enough to eat challah. Ksaver truma bezmanas derabbanan v'chal deraisa. Umaskinim and truma derabbanan v'chal deraisa. So again, it's a machlokus. If we're talking about truma mizmanas that the rabbanan deraisa or chal is the rabbanan deraisa, so if you see them doing one, we'll allow you to do the other, even though one's deraisa and one's the rabbanan according to Lushitas. Kadash kachinu Rav Huna read Rabbi Yeshua rabbanan. Yom Rav Huna read Rabbi Yeshua kachinu rabbanan bebei Rav. The Yasvi Kav was sitting and said, "Yafilman the Yom truma mizmanas that the rabbanan." Even according to the opinion that truma is the rabbanan nowadays, chal deraisa. Still, chal is deraisa. Why? Shari zayin shekibshu zayin shechilku. When it came in the time of Yeshua, after he crossed the Yarden, it took 7 years to conquer the land, 7 years to divide it up. Nischayva b'chala. They were still chayv in the chala. Even in Rashi's Lamadacha shekivan shenichnusa la nischayvu. Once they entered into Eretz Canaan, they're immediately mechuyev in the midst of chala. So we see that it's not totally on the living in Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, it's still deraisa. And you're not chayv in truma or meiser. It says on the side. It says Rashi, "Digoncha tivos zaracha miyuchedes lach. V'oy shahari tol kosev hameiser b'minyan shenais hashmita. Dechsev b'shnas hashlish shnas hameiser shmita yislamanu ela mishikavshu v'chilku." So when it came to the dinim of Shemitah, was only after we already conquered the land, we divided and everything like that. So the dinim of Truma is and Meiser is directly tied to Eretz Yisrael. So now it's only the Rabbanan. So Chal is still deraisa because it's not totally on Kibush and Chiluk. However, when it comes to Truma and Meiser, it's the Rabban. The Aminu no Adrab. I feel about the Truma B'Zaman is the deraisa. Chal the Rabbanan. The Sanya. I'll show you the Chal is actually the Rabbanan now. Why? The pasuk says the Sanya. B'Wachem el Aretz. When you enter into the land. So Iba B'Wachem Yachol Mishen Nechnusullah. Shnai Mishosh Meraglim. Even if, let's say, a couple of the Meraglim went in there. Not all the Jewish people. Just a couple people. Talmud Leimer B'Wachem. V'yas Kulchem Amarti V'lo B'yas Mikzaschem. It has to be that the majority, or let's just translate literally, that all Klal Yisrael are going into Eretz Yisrael. Once they're all there, then there's a chiyuv meiser. Again, there's a chiyuv deraisa of trumas and meisers when there's roiv yidin in Eretz Yisrael. Amarti v'lo b'vias miksaschem v'chi askinu Ezra. And the time of the second Beis Hamikdash, when Ezra came to reestablish the land, as we continue to Chav Hamid Beis, Lav kuhu siluk. They did not all go up. Rashi says, Ruman nishar bebavel. The majority stayed in Bavel. So therefore, Chala is only midrabanan. So it's very interesting. In order to be mechuyev midaraisa of Chala, all you need, as some people say, some yid gets off the airplane, and all of a sudden he represents the rove of being in Eretz Yisrael to be mechuyev in Chala. Okay, but again, depending, it's not necessarily a raya that's yuchsin. It could just be coming to tell you that there is a now you could either eat challah or now you could eat truma. Toshma chazak kahuna nesias kapayim. Here again, you can ask the same question. Then it says v'chil garanais. If you see them eating truma, the edus. Now Rashi says imbo edim shehu kayin shemakirin es avves imo. You have witnesses that say, I know his mommy, I know his dad, and this guy's a kayin. So edus chazakahi. So it says Rashi bitmi abachi edus chazaka karile. El la. So it's, what does that mean? It's chazaka. It's edus. It's not a chazaka. El lav hachikamer nesis kapayim ki edus. Nesias Kapayim has the same status as testimony when you see that. Why? Ma edus yochsin. Edus can actually establish someone for yochsin. It's not Nesias Kapayim yochsin. So charetz araya, then Nesias Kapayim is enough to elevate a person for yochsin. Lo edus haba mikaya chazaka kachazaka. It just means the edus that comes through the strength of a chazaka has the same status as a chazaka. What does that mean? Ki Yahuda also committed Rav Ami. Armulei muchzakni b'zeshu kayin. I have established that this person, in fact, is a kayin. Armulei marisa. So what you see that you could establish he's a kayin? Armulei shikar rishon b'beis achnesas. He was called first to shul. He got the first aliyah. And we know the first person gets called up to the Torah must be a kayin. So he's a kayin. B'chesed kayin or b'chesed gadol. How do you know he's a kayin? Maybe it just means that he's the most chashuv person, therefore he got this honor. Whereas no, it can't be. Shikar achorav Levi, because a Levi was called after him. And an Adam Gadol, we wouldn't have the Levi called second. Therefore, it must be a raya, this first person is a kayin. The Elu Rav Ami l'kahuna apiv. And Rav Ami actually elevated him based on this testimony. Question 12. Chazaka l'kahuna n'seis kapayim chil gronos ve'edus. Edus chazakahi. So we ended up saying, Hachikarma. What this means is as follows. This is question 12. Nesias kapayim ki edus. Ma edus liyochsin. Av nesias kapayim liyochsin. So this could be a raya. That just like edus establishes someone even for yochsin as a kayin, so to nesias kapayim. Or it just means edus haba mikayach chazaka. For example, a person got called up to the Torah, and the second person was a Levi, so that would be proof. The El Ravam El Kuhna Alpiv. Hahudi Asal Kamedu Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Armalei Muchzaknim Ezeshu Levi. I'm positive this guy must be a Levi. So Armalei Mari. So what'd you see? So Armalei Shikar Sheni Beis Achnesas. He got the second aliyah. The second aliyah is given to a Levi. Becheses Shu Levi or Becheses Shu Gadol. Maybe he's a choshev guy. No, Shikar fun of Kayin. The El Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Levim Alpiv. Because if there was no Levi, we would have the Kohen. If we knew this guy, the first guy was a Kohen, the Kohen would get the second Aliyah as well. And the fact that we did not give the Kohen the second Aliyah, it must be because that second person is in fact a Levi. So what did you see? Again, I saw him get the first Aliyah. Did you actually see him dividing up the grains? In other words, did you actually see him getting the aliyah of? Did you actually see him getting truma? Shemalo or Belezer ve'im ein sham gairin batal kahuna. Understand? There's no silos. There's no kahuna. Like, why is that the only proof? Zimnin havi yasvik Rabbi Yochanan. Sometime later, we're sitting in front of Rabbi Yochanan. Also, ki yasa ma'isel. And the story came in front of him. Did you see him do this? So he got upset. You heard something from the words of Bar Nafcha, which is referring to Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Rav Chia Chad Elwa Ben Al Pi Aviv Kahuna V'Chad Elwa Ach Al Pi Achiv Levia. So what happened? According to one, he actually elevated a son through his father, through the testimony of his father, that he said, my son is a good kohen. And one brother elevated his other brother to becoming a Levi. So Testayim de Rebbe Ela ben al pi aviv l'kuhun. The sign Yahari Shabbat. If a person comes, v'armer benizeh, this is my son, the kohen who nemen la'achil b'truma. So he's believed in order to be able that his son can now eat truma. However, we're not going to believe him so much that he's going to actually be able to get married. Says Rashi, because Shema Mamzer Nisinhu Divi Rebbe. We're not going to go so far as marriage. If he wants to eat truma, let him eat truma. So Imata Maminu Hachil B'Truma Taminu Hiseu. I don't understand, but if you actually believe him that this boy is actually a kohen, that you allow him to eat truma, you should actually trust him that he should be able to marry someone proper. If you don't allow him to get married, so you should also not allow him to eat the truma. Why do I have this lean to him truma? Because it's in his hands to feed him truma. Says Rashi, Sharihu kohen. The father is definitely a kohen. Everyone's giving this guy truma. So the father already has truma in his house. So therefore, the father could technically be giving him this food anyway, whatever I say. But it's not in his hands to marry this woman. So to stayim, in fact, it's a proof, then it must be that he was the one who said it. No, Rabbi Ha'olah ben al pi aviv, if he was the one who elevated the son to be able to eat truma through the testimony of his father, Lukunas Rav Chia el ach al pi achav must be that the story of a brother to a brother with a Levi is Rabbi Chia's statement. For Rabbi Chia Maishna Bain Deloy. So why does the father not have the ability to be able to elevate his son to kahuna? Because after all, the Karvu Eitzel Aviv. He's a father and a son. They're crying. So what do you mean? Achnami Karvu Eitzel Achiv. So how is it any better, one brother to another? They're still craving. If you have an issue, the fact that they're related, a father to a son, so brothers, seemingly the same problem. So why do you trust and believe the testimony of one brother to another brother, but not of a father to a son? As we can do the Chav Vav and Aleph. Our answers is because there were b'meisiach lafi tumai. There wasn't testimony. They were just talking. And it just came out that this is what it was. It wasn't actual edus, because you're right. He's a carb. I wouldn't be makabel the edus of what he's saying about his son or about a brother. But I just overheard one brother talking about another brother regarding Levium, and therefore the fact that he said it in such a nonchalant way, therefore we accept what he said. Ki had yom Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel. There's a story. A person who was just talking. I remember when I was a little kid. I was riding on the shoulders of Abba, my dad. And he took me out from school, which was a nice day. And v'hivshi tuni eskutanti. He removed my garment. V'hit biluni le'ech b'truma. And for whatever reason, he had me go into a mikveh to immerse, and I remember as a little kid, I ate truma. Now, why would he have said that? He just said it. Now, it's probably because this kid is actually a fit kohen, says Rashi, because a tinuk very often is found in ashbos and garbage heaps, and there's shrutz in there, so the father was concerned that he may have touched the sheretz, and therefore the kid was tameh. That's why he was toivel his son before he could eat truma. And he finished and said, unfortunately, my friends separated from me. He used to call me Yochanan Oichel Chalois, which I'm not sure if that's such a mean nickname. That's what he was called. The Heluhu Rabbi Kahun Alpiv, and they elevated him based on this, is because they were just being Masiach Hitumo, and because it was Masiach Hitumo, so therefore they were believed. Question 12 we saw about Eidos. Let's see, question 13 we didn't do. TA 10. Ha'isha shenichmasha b'yedei akum hi muter salbala. Nope. TB 10. Be'ez oifen nemelu kol yama ava al ben o ach al achiv la'loy salkuna afal pi shikaravu. And the answer, as we said, is if you are Messiach Lafi Tumo Adkan.